I went to a Kundalini Yoga class yesterday. Never heard this word in my life. And he said, we were chanting, we were moving, we were breathing, we were crying, we were laughing. And of course, like I lit right up because all you want to do as a young actor is like feel and emote and, have these experiences where you can just throw your guts out on the stage. And so I was like, sign me up, let's go. And I went the next day to HB Studio in New York City and took my first Kundalini class. And it was for real the moment that lit the passion of my fire that still burns today. It completely
Mm,
changed my life. I had never done anything like that, experienced anything like that. I've been in my body in that way, although I was, athletic and fit, but I had never just like worked with my breath and with my concentration, moved my body in these particular positions. And I believe in that first day, I had a minor Kundalini awakening. And I walked out onto
mm,
the streets in New York City, and everything around me just looked different. It looked more
yeah.
vibrant, more beautiful. I was more grounded in my body. I was in a state of bliss and high energy. And that's what started me on my journey. And luckily, I was in a space where the yoga scene was just burgeoning in New York, So Jivamukti was there, and so many places were just popping up and incredible teachers were coming. So I had like, a huge opportunity to learn. And I did. I just became obsessed with no idea that it would become the thing that I would ultimately put all of my or most of my attention to in terms of my work. At the
Mm.
time, it was just to increase my ability as an artist and to be in my body and just to react more truthfully on stage and things of that nature. But so many things about the theater and acting and empathy and energy and were going hand in hand with the yoga and the Kundalini especially. So it wasn't long after that that I did my first yoga teacher training at Shivananda, and all the rest is history.
Well, and that's such a fascinating connection, right? Because, on the surface, there might be people or listeners who look at amplified yoga and then maybe they'll have thoughts like, well, this is not traditional yoga. But you started from these like traditional lineage-based yoga systems, right? So like
Right.
how does one get from there to amplified yoga?
Well, it was just an opportunity that came. I had no idea that this was going to come through. Amplified Yoga came many years later. This was around 2018, 2019 at Wanderlust, which, Wanderlust, they created some of the biggest yoga festivals in the world that were also incorporating music. Many teachers that I'm sure a lot of your listeners know went through the Wanderlust, festivals and taught there, etc. And so I was teaching at their studio in Hollywood, and somebody called me from there and said, "Would you like to teach a deep house yoga class?" And I said, "Okay, sure." A DJ brought this idea. We'll do some yoga. Let's be clear, asana, vinyasa is what the expectation was. Choose some house music. And so that was a Sunday at 6 p.m. at the beautiful stage at Wonderlust. And I think I did some semblance of a sun salutation as the music was going, and something just really opened up in me. And I just started speaking. I said, "Get up," and had people start moving their body in a different way. And I started asking them questions about their psyche, their energy, their heart, to imagine things that they wanted to create, manifestation, things along these lines, liberating their body from just things that are held in there. As we know, the body keeps score, and to release and liberate themselves from long held beliefs and physical restrictions in their body. And the hour and a half passed and ended, and people were kind of in shock and so moved. And some people came up afterwards, literally in tears, because it can be a very emotional, cathartic experience. And they're like, "What did we just do? What just happened?" And I was like, "I'm not quite sure. Come back next Sunday. Let's see where this goes."
Yeah.
And right after that, I just started doing it every Sunday. The classes were packed. Within a year, I was headlining all the Wanderlust festivals. I went even more deeply. I just started what I felt receiving information about what the next steps were. It was just so organic, and one of them was to go deeper into my Kundalini training. Although I had been practicing Kundalini for 25 years at that point, I just wanted to go deeper. So I
Mm.
went to Yoga West and I met with a man named Guru Singh, who's still an incredible teacher and somebody who really inspires me. And I just went into another teacher training for Kundalini at the same time as this was all evolving, and just went very, very deep into that practice because it became clear that it was not going to be a vinyasa yoga experience. And Kundalini really speaks to me. And then there's so much more that I bring to it other than the traditional Kundalini teachings.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for that.
And I love that you said that a lot of people might look at this and say this isn't traditional yoga. And I do definitely do get those comments. And as I was, because very traditional Kundalini was taught at Wanderlust, and some people were like, "Well, that's not yoga, that's not Kundalini." And I beg to differ. I think a lot of people actually have a big misconception about what yoga is, and they think it is the asana. They think it is the vinyasa or the Ashtanga series by Patabi Joyce, which was invented in the, in the 19th, 20th century. And, for young
Yeah.
boys, for
Yep.
athleticism and things of that nature,
Yep.
and that's what people think are yoga. But what we're doing in that space in Amplified definitely is using many, many aspects of the yoga practice and philosophy. So it might not be what people consider traditional, but it certainly is using the yogic principles and technologies, no doubt about that.